Today, we're diving into a report from Uzbekistan's central bank that unpacks a really unusual economic challenge from back in Q3 2025. The problem wasn't a shortage of money, it was the complete opposite. So, what exactly was the issue? Believe it or not, it was having way too much cash just sloshing around inside the banking system. Economists have a term for this, a liquidity surplus. And, it turned into a real headache for the country's policymakers.
And that's the million-dollar question, right? It sounds like a great problem to have, but when banks are sitting on piles of idle cash, it can start to mess with interest rates in ways the central bank really doesn't want, and that can have knock-on effects for the entire economy.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at this flood of cash. Then the forces playing a massive tug-of-war with all that money. After that, we'll check out the central bank's brand new playbook, see if it actually worked, and finally, we'll talk about why any of this really matters to you. So just how big was this flood of cash we're talking about? Well, let's start with a really key idea here. Let's get on the same page with this term, bank liquidity. The easiest way to think about it is all the ready cash available in the system. It's basically the lifeblood of the economy that makes sure all the payments between banks, businesses, and people like us happen without a hitch. Okay, get this. In the third quarter of 2025, the surplus of that cash, the extra amount just sitting around, was an average of 21.4 trillion som. That is a huge number, and it's the figure the central bank had to get a handle on. So where in the world did this massive surplus come from? Well, it was basically the result of this giant financial tug-of-war, with enormous sums of money being pulled in completely opposite directions. And this lays it out perfectly. On one side of the rope, you had government operations just pumping over 12 trillion som into the banking system. But on the other side, you had the public pulling about 3.3 trillion som out of the system as physical cash. Do the math, and you're left with a giant surplus still in the banks. So, staring down this massive pile of cash, the central bank knew it couldn't just sit on its hands. It needed a new strategy, a whole new playbook, to really get this situation under control. And you can see a really clear turning point here. Before August 1st, the main tool the central bank was using, these things called deposit auctions, just wasn't cutting it. Banks weren't really interested. So on August 1st, they made a huge switch and started issuing their own short-term bonds specifically designed to soak up all that extra money. So why did this new plan work so much better? Well, these new bonds were way more attractive to banks because they could be used as collateral. Think of it like a security deposit for other financial deals. That made them a super flexible and valuable thing to have. And the proof is right there in the numbers. A whopping 104 trillion som worth of these bonds were snapped up in just one quarter.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but here's the real question. Did the new playbook actually work? Let's dig into the data and see what kind of impact this big policy change really had.
To see if it was a success, we have to look at the one number they really cared about, a key interest rate called UZONIA. It's the rate banks charge each other for overnight loans. All that extra cash was pushing this rate way too low, and the bank wanted to nudge it back up to get it closer to their main policy rate of 14%. And here's the before snapshot. In July, before the new policy really kicked in, the utilization rate was averaging just 12.8%. That was way off the mark and a clear signal that the system was out of whack. Now, check out September. After they switched to the new bonds, the average rate jumped up to 13.5%. I mean, that's a clear win. The central bank's new tool worked perfectly, steering the market rate almost exactly where they wanted it to be. When you see visuals like these from the report, they look incredibly complex, right? All these lines, they represent trillions of som flowing between all the different banks. The central bank's job is to be the conductor for this entire orchestra. And in Q3, they basically just changed the sheet music. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Trillions of som, interbank rates. Why should I care about any of this technical stuff? Let's connect the dots to the real world. Well, it matters because a stable financial system is the bedrock of our day-to-day economy. When the central bank gets this stuff right, it means the payment systems you use every single day are safe and secure. It also has an indirect impact on the interest rates you get on your savings accounts and personal loans. And, big picture, it just creates a predictable, confident economy for all of us. And this challenge isn't just a one-time thing. The central bank's own report says that this financial tug-of-war is set to continue, with the government still pumping cash in while the public keeps pulling it out. So that leaves us with this final big question. The central bank has proven it has a new, much more effective playbook for this incredibly delicate balancing act. But as the economy keeps changing and new pressures are sure to pop up, the real test will be whether they can keep staying one step ahead.